On this special edition of the ICT Newscast, our producers are diving even deeper into their stories. We'll hear from them and our guests. Holly Cook-Macaro gives us an update on appropriations bills and the threat of another government shutdown. Mackenzie Allen Charmley has exclusive red carpet interviews with the cast of Marvel's new series, Echo. And we learn about the legacy of activist Lee Benally.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
Support for the ICT Newscast with Aaliyah Chavez comes from the Arizona PBS studios in Phoenix at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communications at Arizona State University.
My name is Renata Birkenbiel. I'm the education correspondent for the Mountain Bureau for ICT News, and I am Montana Little Shell. Lily Gladstone, who's Blackfeet and Nez Perce and a Browning, Montana native, made history as the first Indigenous actor to win a Golden Globes Award this week. Many in Indian country showed tearful reactions on social media to Gladstone's equally historic speech. I know I teared up when the camera focused on presenter Don Cheadle announcing Lily's win for Best Actress in a Motion Picture Drama category. Lily then kissed her mother in the front row before walking on stage. Gladstone memorably said in her Blackfeet language, since translated into English, "Hello, all my relations. My name is Eagle Woman. I am Blackfeet. I love you." We here at ICT News couldn't be prouder when Lily gave a shout out to the Native kids watching her who aim for success. Lily ended her heartfelt speech to a hushed room when she said, "This award is for every little res kid, every little urban kid, every little Native kid out there who has a dream, who is seeing themselves represented in our stories, told by ourselves in our own words, with tremendous allies and tremendous trust." She seems to have come out of nowhere, but Gladstone has actually had an extensive career on stage and mostly in independent films before winning the Golden Globe for her captivating, understated portrayal of Osage landowner Molly Burkhart in acclaimed director Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon. A 2008 graduate of the University of Montana Theater and Dance Department, Lily had rave reviews in other films like indie productions Certain Women and Fancy Dance, and in a popular TV series Reservation Dogs. Previously, she worked as a stage actor. We at ICT News couldn't be more proud of Lily Gladstone. She's already been nominated for a Screen Actors Award also, so we are keeping our fingers crossed that she will also be nominated for a 2024 Academy Award. Voted most likely to win an Oscar by her drama peers at Mount Terrace High School in Seattle, Lily hopefully will prove them right.
I mean, every time that I've felt like I should do something else, I'm an only child, and your parents get to a certain age and you feel like you need to do something to help support them. And, you know, for most actors who love this and are as talented and just committed as everybody who was nominated tonight and on the stage, doesn't happen for everybody. So every time I've felt a level of guilt or feeling like it wasn't really possible, my mom and my dad, my whole life, they've never once questioned that this is what I was meant to do.
Hi, I'm Stuart Huntington, and I'm a producer here at ICT News. As a non-native, sometimes I'm asked why I work in Indian country. I have two answers. First, it's all Indian country, and Native communities deserve support and respect they've too long been denied. Second, it's clear that Aboriginal ideals, or AI if you will, are powerful and deserve protection and promotion as we face humanity's most serious challenges. Take the word sovereignty. Webster's defines it as supreme power and freedom from external control. And that's what I always thought, until Professor Donald Fixico, Sack and Fox, told me natives have a different view, that sovereignty comes with an obligation to take care of the land and communities on it. It's an obligation too often ignored. That's why I love doing land back stories, like the one coming up about a tribe regaining sovereignty over vast forests and fisheries. I'm a news reporter. I can't change the world, but at least sometimes the work I do reflects the actions of the people who can.
We turn now to Northern California, where a tribe is celebrating a major land back victory. The Hoopa Valley tribe in December purchased more than 10,000 acres of its homelands. The large-scale land return means the tribe can protect cultural sites and restore habitat for a sacred relative, according to Chairman Joe Davis.
To be able to gain back such a large area of our Aboriginal territory, it really means a lot to us. Being able to manage the sacred salmon spawning habitat.
The $14 million purchase marks the tribe's largest land expansion since the 1864 establishment of its reservation.
Yad e polydinacla yanishia, Hultonishland dog ya ani bashichin bit ani dashiche do she dashanella, kin hojone dant nasha. Yat a everyone, hello, my name is Polly Dinetclaw. I'm Meadow People born for Towering House People, and I'm originally from Manulito, New Mexico. I'm the producer of the weekly political segment here at ICT, and when I first started getting into politics, I really didn't understand the appropriation bill process. I didn't understand how the government got funded. I didn't understand how government shutdowns occurred when I was in college, and my father went through a furlough, and he was furloughed from his government job, and I didn't understand how that was possible. And during that time, I researched and I read news articles, and I began to understand how the appropriation process works. And so that is why I wanted to do this segment. So I'm pleased to introduce this conversation between Aaliyah Chavez and Holly Cook-Macaro, our regular contributor.
We begin with our weekly political segment to talk about the upcoming appropriations bills and the threat of a partial government shutdown again. ICT regular contributor Holly Cook-Macaro is here virtually to discuss this. She is the founding principal and president of The Angle, and she is also a board member of Indig Public Media, the parent company that owns both ICT and the ICT Newscast. It's wonderful to see you, Holly.
Hi, Leah. It's good to see you as well.
First off, can you explain what the annual appropriation bills are and the process for getting them to the president's desk?
Sure. I could explain what it's supposed to look like. It's really, I think, been decades since we've had, a regular appropriations process. What is supposed to happen is that the Congress, the president puts forth a budget. The Congress usually largely ignores that, but that is an expression of presidential priorities. And over the summer, which is kind of the appropriation season, there are a lot of hearings, and the appropriations bills begin to move through both chambers. And then by October 1st, we are supposed to have a funding deal and numbers that will fund each of the branches of the government. But as we all know, the last several years have really brought us to the brink of government shutdowns over either the funding numbers or over policy issues. That happened again this year when Speaker McCarthy was ousted in the fall, partially because of the deal that he struck back then in regards to the numbers and on some policy issues. So a continuing resolution, or in Washington, D.C. lingo, a CR, was passed then. We are under a CR that it expires on January 19th right now. What that continuing resolution does is continue funding levels at the previous year's levels so that the government doesn't shut down. It authorizes our the government to continue spending funds. So where we are at right now is over the weekend, Speaker Johnson and Senate Majority Leader Schumer struck what they call a top line deal. They agreed to an overall number. And that, while that is good news and seemed to imply that we weren't going to see a government shutdown, that's actually not the case, because they're still negotiating the numbers, the allocations for the 12 appropriations subcommittees. And so until those negotiations are complete, then the subcommittees aren't able to actually begin the work of funding individual programs that are under the jurisdiction of those appropriations bills. Those 12 subcommittees cover each of the branches of government, the agencies and in the administration, the Ag Department, the Department of Interior, HHS, and goes through all of those, state defense. And so that's where we are at. They are waiting for the overall department number, and then they will begin filling in all the blanks. Much of that work is already done, but if the numbers change significantly or allocations do, then they will have to go through and realign many of those numbers to match with the top line deal that was struck over the weekend.
In that top line deal that was struck over the weekend, can you tell us at a high level if you've seen anything related to Indian country and or Indigenous communities in that?
You know, I haven't seen anything specific. Really, what we get is that top line number, and they will leave the hashing out of the individual numbers to the subcommittees. And so we have the chairs of the appropriations committees are hard at work right now. They are the ones who are hashing out those numbers that are specific to individual agencies. So it will be over the next 24 hours that we see what the Department of Interior's budget is. That will give us a sense of if it's up or down, and how those cuts will be translated down to Indian country. So I think really by tomorrow or by Friday, certainly, we are going to have some idea of what the impacts of this new budget are going to be on Indian country. But at this point, we have a top line deal and won't know anything for sure until those individual allocations to the subcommittees are completed.
And Holly, at this point, do you think that there's any likelihood that there could be a partial government shutdown if lawmakers don't agree to anything?
Well, that was the subject of much discussion over the last 48 hours as Speaker Johnson, right after he took the gavel, said that he was done with short-term CRs. But the necessity right now is, I think all agree and recognize that a short-term CR is going to be necessary. It just doesn't look like it's going to be possible for them to complete the work of those subcommittee allocations, working out those numbers, ensuring that all of the policy pieces that they've agreed to are reflected within this budget, and getting all of that done, passed through both chambers and signed by the president by January 19th. That's a lot of work to get done. So the universal thinking on the Hill right now is there will be a CR. I heard this morning that there are folks that are requesting they want one into March, so that will give them another 6 weeks to kick the can on this and work out those numbers.
Well, Holly, thank you so much as always.
Yes, thank you, Olivia.
Have you heard the news? Because it's as loud as an echo. Marvel Studios released its newest TV series, Echo, this week, and it includes Hollywood history. The series stars an Indigenous lead, deaf and amputee character who is played by an actress who represents all of those communities. I attended the red carpet earlier this week to really learn what Echo and this representation means to Hollywood. Smiles, laughs, and signs. Marvel's newest hero is Indigenous and deaf, and here at the premiere of Echo, that representation is groundbreaking.
I think it's everything. It's very few times do we get to work on something that is representing a tribe, and the tribe is involved as much as it was here.
Collaboration ranged from Native actors, writers, ASL experts, and directors to tribal representatives on the Choctaw Nation. All throughout production, Echo's goal was to ensure accuracy on screen.
Everything I did, I always ran past the Choctaw. It was very important for me to be able to make sure that everything was culturally correct.
Indigenous anti-hero Maya Lopez is the star of the new Marvel, Disney Plus, and Hulu TV series, played by Menominee and Mohican citizen Alakwa Cox. Her character is the first Indigenous, deaf, and amputee lead in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and is played by an actress who belongs to all three communities.
While Echo makes history in many ways, it paves the way for increased representation for Indigenous people in media.
Well, for me, it's about, because we've been a part of this, and I got to play a small part in it. So for me, it's really about showcasing our history and our culture to the world. The stickball game is very authentic sticks, the game and how it's highlighted. So that is just a wonderful thing for us, again, to see our history and culture displayed.
So I think walking around set and knowing that if I had a question in relation to my Choctaw lines, if I had a question in regards to the ASL, those questions would be helped. I would be supported in whatever I thought would achieve the most representation that's authentic through my character, which is Choctaw, that's all she speaks.
For many of the stars, working on a show like Echo was a dream come true.
Little Alakwa would be like, oh my gosh, so thrilled. I wish I would be able to tell little Alakwa, just like, she just never believed in herself, and now I'm like here as a superhero, and I made it through it, and I want to tell her we can. Little Alakwa would just be so thrilled and proud of who we are.
It's a lot of hard work. It's not, all this is glamorous and great, but no one sees behind when you're making a film. It's really hard work.
All in all, the series is guaranteed to leave an echo in Hollywood.
You're gonna love it.
There's a powwow scene. It's very beautifully shot. I think people are going to be really also amazed about the battle scenes, the fight scenes. It's brutal. It's more violent. It's darker.
And an Echo in Indian country.
If I had seen shows like Echo when I was growing up, like the fact that our youth get to see this now just means so much. It would have meant everything. It would have changed what I thought was possible for our communities. It would have changed how I saw myself and what was possible in the world off my res.
In Los Angeles, Mackenzie Allen Charmley, ICT News.
Visiting with family and relatives will help us from feeling lonely or socially isolated. COVID-19 changed everything, like our ancestors who survived war, famine, and epidemics. Our elders had to make sacrifices too. The more we are socially connected with our family and community, the less health problems we will have and the longer we will live. We need to stay active to keep our spirits alive. Remember, you are not alone. Connected together, we will stand strong. For more information on elder isolation or caregiver resources, go to connectedindigenousElders.org.
Now we head to Dinetka, the Navajo Nation. I first learned about Clee Benally's work when I was a student at the University of New Mexico. It was through Benally's advocacy work that I learned about the issues happening on our sacred mountain, Dokosleed. Later, I learned about the info shop that he helped to co-found in Kintlane, Flagstaff, Arizona. I learned about the importance of info shops and the access to literature and education that they provide for a community. Benally was passionate about media justice, and in his last interview with ICT before he passed away, he talked about the importance of accurate representation when it comes to Indigenous communities. Here's that conversation.
Prominent activist Clee Benally has died. Benally, who is Dene, was a well-known advocate for Indigenous people and environmental causes. During his life, Benally's name became synonymous with his tireless efforts against the controversial snowmaking activities at the Arizona Snow Bowl ski resort in Flagstaff, a mountain that is considered sacred by at least 13 tribes. He was also a staunch protester against issues like police violence and racial profiling. He notably joined activists in 2014 outside an NFL stadium in Phoenix to denounce the offensive team name used by the Washington, D.C. franchise. Benally was also a passionate advocate for the cleanup of abandoned mines, which once extracted uranium ore from the Navajo Nation in support of U.S. nuclear activities during the Cold War. Beyond his advocacy, Clee Benally was also a talented guitarist known for his contributions to the Native American punk rock band Blackfire, where he performed alongside his sister and brother. He was 48. In addition to his activism, Clee Benally was also an avid filmmaker who used the medium to advocate for Indigenous justice within the entertainment industry. In August of last year, ICT's Mackenzie Allen Charmley talked with Benally about the release of Barbie and Oppenheimer after the films received backlash from Native audiences.
I've been a media justice advocate for over 20 years now. So media justice really is a powerful tool for us to understand critically how storytelling, how narratives impact, how they shape our identities, and the power, the underlying power relationships that they reinforce or that they deepen. And so to respond to that question, first is to address the fact that we have ongoing challenges with Indigenous people in representation, particularly in pop cultural mass media. We can look at the history and look at why we're here today. And what really concerns me is that we've fought hard as Indigenous people against dehumanizing narratives that have degraded and facilitated ongoing colonial violence against our people. You cannot easily oppress or degrade or commit violence against people if you have not dehumanized them, if you have not portrayed them as being less than. And so these narrative dimensions of power are what concern me beyond Oppenheimer, beyond Barbie, but overall with the media that we are subject to, that we consume, as people say. And this is a critical, aspect of the environments that we are subject to, the archives that inform dominant cultures' understanding of, our dominant society's understanding of who Indigenous people are, which also impacts how we view ourselves and how we treat ourselves. And most importantly, what ways that we are dehumanized, and this applies to any kind of negative portrayal, like mascotry of Indigenous people, or just the sort of like what appears to be casual co-optation or appropriation. The underlying aspect is it's tied to a context of violence against of Indigenous people that we can just be taken from without consent. Our bodies, our knowledge, our spirit, and our land and waters. So as I mentioned, justice won't come at the box office. And, perhaps some cathartic feeling as an approximation of justice could, like if we had a wildly successful narrative and people denounced the portrayal of Indigenous people or the lack thereof in these films. Maybe we had a blockbuster Indigenous film that reinforced positive aspects and empowerment of Indigenous people. But maybe that would give us a reference point and make a lot of people money, but the underlying power relationships, if they haven't changed and the exploitation, domination, and control persists that comprises the institutionalization and commodification of indigenous identity, then we really can't call that justice. For me, it would amount to like a play at a prison acted out by prisoners, so we have to ask ourselves, what is it going to take for us to make a jailbreak from these colonial and capitalist constraints, especially when, and we talk about accountability, studio execs only care about their bottom line, their profits. So unless they're confronted and challenged, and we dig deeper and look at the root causes of the commodification and exploitation of Indigenous identity, if we look at the erasure of Indigenous existence, and we also stop playing into these industries and instead empower Indigenous narratives with culturally rooted media practices, I think we can establish accountability on our terms. One, by checking and addressing these problematic practices, but two, by empowering our systems of media expression that are culturally informed, that empower our cultural ways of sharing knowledge, because we are ultimately storytellers. And to me, this means fighting colonial narratives, means resisting this cultural imperialism.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.